On Christmas night, when most homes glowed with warm lights and laughter, the small, crumbling apartment at the edge of Brookridge lay in near darkness, silent except for the soft shivering breaths of a mother trying desperately to keep her children warm. Mara Kellen had spent the last of her money on a half bag of groceries and 2 cheap candles, and now she sat with her arms wrapped around her sleeping kids, hoping the morning might somehow be kinder. But deep inside, she felt the crushing weight of hopelessness settling in again, heavier than the winter wind beating against the cracked windows. She didn't expect anyone to knock. She didn't expect help. And she definitely didn't expect the men who appeared at her door, tall, rugged, calm, with a gaze that seemed to see right through the shadows, as if drawn there by something she couldn't explain. He looked at her, then at the children, then simply said, in a low, steady voice, "Come with me. If you believe kindness still exists in this world, and if you believe everyone deserves a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Good Soul to support stories that inspire hope." Mara hadn't heard a voice like his in years, firm yet gentle, strong yet strangely comforting. His name was Rylan Ashford, a former Navy SEAL who had returned to his hometown only a week earlier, trying to rebuild his own life after years of service that left deep emotional scars. He had come to deliver gifts to disadvantaged families as part of a local charity when he noticed her apartment's door half open, the cold seeping out as though the darkness inside was trying to escape. Something made him stop. Something made him step inside. And now, facing this woman and her 2 small children huddled under thin blankets, he felt a protective instinct rise in him stronger than anything he had felt in years. Mara hesitated. Life had beaten her down enough times to make trust feel dangerous. Since losing her husband, Gareth, to a construction accident the previous winter, she had worked 2 part-time jobs, lived with the humiliation of asking for help, and faced endless nights wondering how she could keep going. Her children, 7-year-old Noah and 4-year-old Mira, were all she had left, and she guarded them fiercely. But when she looked at Rylan, she saw something steady in his expression, something sincere. She didn't know how or why, but she felt her fear loosen its grip. Rylan gently stepped aside and offered his hand, not forcing, not rushing, simply inviting. Mara finally nodded and lifted her children into her arms. They followed him into the crisp night air, where his truck sat with the heater running. Blankets, warm meals, wrapped gifts, and a thermos of hot cocoa waited inside, as if he had prepared it exactly for them, though he hadn't known they existed until minutes earlier. As the children warmed their fingers around the cocoa cups and the truck rumbled through snowy streets, Mara felt tears she had tried so hard to hold back beginning to slip down her cheeks. It wasn't just the warmth or the food, it was the feeling of being seen again. He took them to the Ridgeview Community Center, where volunteers were packing up from the day's charity event. But when Rylan walked in with Mara and her children, everyone stopped. The volunteers immediately reopened food stations, reheated meals, and gathered more blankets. Rylan quietly told them what he had found, and without question, they rallied around the small family. Mara watched in disbelief as strangers prepared plates of food for her kids, brought toys they hadn't given out yet, and set up a temporary cot area with extra pillows. For the first time in months, she felt the crushing tightness in her chest begin to break apart. Rylan stayed nearby, not hovering, not pitying, simply present. She learned slowly about him, how he had returned home to recover from injuries both seen and unseen, how he still struggled with isolation and guilt from moments he wished he could forget. But he didn't talk much about himself unless she asked. Instead, he listened. He listened to her fears, her exhaustion, her feeling of failure as a mother. And he told her, firmly but kindly, that asking for help wasn't failing. That strength didn't always look like standing tall, sometimes it looked like surviving the night. As the children played with their new toys and volunteers finished tidying up, Rylan walked Mara to the corner of the room where the Christmas tree lights glowed softly in warm colors. He told her he had already spoken with the center's director. They had arranged temporary housing for her, meals for the next week, job placement assistance, and a support network she didn't even know existed. Mara covered her mouth with her hands as her eyes overflowed again, this time not from fear, but from a sense of relief so deep it nearly brought her to her knees. All she could whisper was, "Thank you," again and again, each one trembling with gratitude. Rylan simply smiled, the quiet kind of smile that held kindness without expecting anything in return. Christmas morning would come soon, and for the first time in a long while, it would arrive with warmth, safety, and the promise of a future that didn't feel impossible. And Mara knew this night, this unexpected moment with a stranger who chose compassion, would be the turning point her family needed. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that goodness still exists, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Good Soul to help us spread more hope-filled stories.